Hello, my friend. Doc Martin here. On today's Ask Doc Martin, I'm going to be doing an interview. And it's an interview with a parent who has written this very unique and interesting book entitled Parenting Autism Nurturing and Celebrating Your Unique Child, Sanjukta Mukherji. She's a mom and a behavior analyst, so it's an interesting combination. Now, she started her journey, I guess, initially in finance and then entered what she calls the wondrous world of autism when her son was diagnosed with autism in the early 2000s. She became a special education teacher and then later a board certified behavior analyst. She's a very passionate advocate about sustaining long term supports for individuals with unique abilities. Her diverse experiences while working across a variety of settings have shaped her approach towards functional and compassionate intervention strategies. Texas is her home with her husband, her children, and a fur baby. Whatever. Now that's an interesting one. Now, what is the fur baby that you're talking about?
Oh, he's a little Shih Tzu, and he is naughty as can be. Just that little firecracker. That's
Oh,
my
a little
baby.
fur baby, huh? So now in this interview, I'm not going to be able to go through the whole book chapter by chapter, but I want to give the viewers a flavor of what the book is about. Uh, just for everybody's information, there's an introductory chapter, and then 10 chapters that cover a range of topics, and they range from getting a diagnosis, early intervention, importance of play, challenging behaviors, personal care, friendships, going out in the community, research, lots. There's more than that, but that's just to give you a little initial, give the viewers initial hit on what the book is about. And I guess my first question for you is, how did this book come about?
Yeah, came about. To the publisher about a year back. He had reached out on just if I would be interested to write anything to share my journey. And initially, I was wondering, what should I do? Should I or should I not go about it? And then I said, you know what? 20 years, almost 20 years back when I started, I often felt, oh, I wish I knew. Like, now looking back, I almost always felt, I wish I knew that. And I felt during this 20 years time period, I'm and our family, I think we are just changed individuals. We are just, from where we started, where we have gotten. And during this time, I felt as a parent, if you don't walk the path, it's impossible to simulate. I cannot understand somebody else's journey unless I kind of walk it myself. Similarly, for a pet teacher, unless you walk that path, you don't know what really that entails. And then a clinician. And I said, okay, fine, I can kind of share my stories, my ideas, my experiences, and they give each of this group a flavor and an inside look into the other. So I can give a teacher and a clinician an inside view of what a parent goes through. I can give the teacher an inside view of a parent and a clinician, and similarly for the clinician about what a classroom entails and what parents entail. So I think I kind of just wanted to combine all of my personal experiences, my professional experiences, and bring it together in a simple strategies which anybody can follow. I didn't want to use a lot of jargons. I didn't want to use a lot of, like talking of the child as if the child is a data point and or an outlier or something like that. It's just a human, our own child. And so, how do we just live our lives with a special needs child?
Well, now there's a lot of books on parenting and autism out on the market. So, what makes your book really unique and different?
I think my experiences, my journeys, and the fact that I lived it, the fact that I walked these paths. I also feel that a lot of, at least that's how I felt when I read it. Um, when I read a book on, some these would be termed like recovering from autism or curing or these kind of these words being used. I didn't like it. I didn't like it because I felt, today, I was reading perhaps at a time that I felt I can't look beyond today. My child is in a state, or, as a family, we are not functioning very well. I can't look beyond today, and I can't read this tremendous story of hope. It doesn't give me hope. It just makes me feel like, oh God, I can't take this anymore. I can't read this book. So I wanted to keep a little bit of, like, things are real. We go through all kinds of experiences as parents. It's okay. Sometimes I think and I look back and I feel I want to give my younger self a tight hug. It's because I made mistakes, and I had to kind of learn very quickly. That learning curve was very steep, and I know so many parents are going through it at this time as well. With my parent trainings, when I talk to them, I kind of hear what I used to feel so many years back. So, and I think I feel I am in that unique position to voice that in an empathetic way, in a compassionate way, simply because I've lived through it. It's not
Okay.
been a wondrous tale of anything. We've had our hard times, we have our wonderful times, and we've just evolved as people.
Now, in the book, you follow a fairly there's a structure to it, and it was fun. I really enjoyed reading it. Just let everybody know it was really really just fun, and I especially like you'd start each chapter with the journey, and you would talk about your personal experiences, and then you didn't spend a lot. We didn't go a lot into techniques. There's a lot of books on techniques. You touched on them a little bit, but you connected it to evidence-based practice for the second part. It was like there was two parts to it. So you want to describe a little bit how that came about.
Yes. So I thought, I would start every chapter. First of all, it was almost like, looking back and my own personal journey. So I said, okay, where do I start? Then initially, when I was writing the book, and I said, well, I have to start at the early signs. What was I seeing, and I didn't take action, or not quickly enough. So I just mapped it out that way. And I think somewhere my own thought process, or the way I wanted to be for our family, was that if something didn't work, so for initially, let's say for many years, we hadn't gone out and eaten at a restaurant because my son was not ready. For many years, we hadn't gone out as a family for a vacation or for the movies, or little things that families would do, and we hadn't done it. And I said, I can't live like this. This is not good for my own mental state, if you would call it. So then I said, okay, then what? So I needed to find providers. I needed to find people who would work with me. And, we can make things happen as a family. Like, we can function the way we want to function. And so when I started the book and I said, I'm going to map it out, I'm going to try and feel how I felt as a parent so many years back. If I felt vulnerable, if I felt naive, if I felt I wasn't really getting a hold of it, I want to, capture that feeling, that emotion, and I portray it. And then I switched my voice. Initially, I was writing the professional voice in italics, just to kind of make a switch of the tone. But then, after that, I mean, I think I went ahead with the regular the font. But the professional part of it was, now when I look back, I feel, oh, this was what was happening. Okay, so I feel there's a science to it. Now I understand the backgrounds of it. And I just wanted to kind of switch that, and I kind of wanted to let parents know, try to give them some examples of what,
Mhm.
any part of it, what a school IEP goal must look like. If I'm going out to the restaurant and I have an beginner learner, an intermediate learner, an advanced learner, how may I use communication in a restaurant setup? Things like that. Just wanted to kind of share and give an idea. Frankly, when I was writing, I just felt each chapter could be a book by itself. It just needed, if I wanted to. But I wanted to kind of stay away from the research or that kind of language. Wanted to kind of just make it very conversational, like, I'm sitting and I'm sharing some ideas, some experiences, and feel and see how, how it gets taken. Like, what is the acceptance for that?
Now, in chapter two, getting to diagnosis, there's two questions I have on this. The first one is that it seems like You went through, you mentioned all the stages and going through, grief and non-acceptance and then finally acceptance. But you said the first time you were relieved to find out the word autism, but then when the doctor told you autism, you were crushed. Talk a
Yes.
little bit about that experience.
So, so the about the 1.5 to 2 years, actually, year three, third year birthday is when I got the final proper diagnosis. But between that 1.5 to 3 years old, I would pick up all of these, little signs. And I think I would constantly ask myself, what am I doing so wrong? How are the other mothers and their babies all flourishing? And what am I doing wrong as a mother? That the fact that my child is not talking, or the my child is not responding to me. So when I got when I initially heard from the doctor here, from the pediatrician here, that don't think too much about it, but it may be autism, but then we have to get a final formal diagnosis, and I'm going to let you know. And so I heard the word autism, came back, I Googled it, and I said, oh my God, this is it. So it just felt like suddenly somebody had turned a light on, and I had an answer and was groping in the dark for so long. And then, when after that whole assessment, the formal diagnosis came about, and I saw that, autism spectrum written next to my son's name, and I saw him so oblivious to anything that's going on, just happy in his own little world, a completely content little guy. And I said, my God, he doesn't even know what it was almost like hearing a sentence, like, what has just been said to me, what that means. I myself didn't really know what to expect. But that moment was such a vulnerable. On the one hand, I wished that on the one hand, I wished everything was, my fault, that I could fix myself and my son would be okay. On the other hand, I felt somewhere in the back of my mind, oh, now I know how to help him. So I found that such an interesting combination of emotions,
Hmm.
such conflicting emotions, maybe at two different points in, just a few months apart, maybe a month or month and a half apart, but each so real, each so true. And each time I think about it, I still feel that relief, and I still feel that heartache. And I feel, as a
Hmm.
mother, if somebody had told me that, this is something that I hadn't done right or whatever, I could just erase all of it, simply because, there's so many self advocates and so many autistics, and they say, I would never change my autism for anything in this world. And that's wonderful. I feel like, oh, maybe my son feels like that too. But since he can't express it and he can't tell me, I always wonder that, is he missing out? Am I doing enough? Or is it, can I just take things away and,
Hmm.
make it okay? So I don't know. At this point, as a mother, I don't know if he feels okay, if he feels happy. I mean, he is a happy kid, but, internally, he's not able to tell me his emotions
Uh-huh.
in detail. So as a mother, I think those are the conflicting things we experience as parents. And I just wanted to put that out.
Uh, so, um, you told a really interesting story in that chapter. I'd like you to share it. It was uh, buying a ticket to Italy. I love that story. Go ahead and tell it right now.
You want me to share that?
Yeah, tell the story if there's so they hear. I think it was such a good story.
Well, actually, it's a paraphrase from somebody else. It's not my own, so I
Uh-huh.
don't take credit for it. But I think the time that we get a diagnosis, we see our little child. But also, what happens is you see your neighbors, your friends, their children, similar ages, and you see a level of interaction, and you see the lack of it with your own. um, and I think throughout, in various degrees, no matter how much you accept, there is always that little, oh, I wish. um, I don't know whether that's unique to us as parents, it's us as a family, but sometimes, or the other, varying degrees between partners is what I have experienced. So we were going through this difficult, rather, coming to terms with everything we heard, coming to terms with what the future holds for us. or rather trying to. So that's when we came across this, is that you buy a ticket, you think you're going to Italy, and you know everything about Italy because you see things around and you're really looking forward to it, and then you land in Sweden or some other country that I mentioned. And then I said, and you say, oh well, I can't make I this is not what I signed up for, this is not what I purchased. And they say, well, this is where you are now, deal with it. And so somewhere I think that made a lot of sense, kind of that allegory, is that you don't think about, at least in our I was hearing the word autism for the first time when my son got diagnosed. So it's a condition I didn't even know existed. So really there was nothing that I felt, oh gosh, you don't sign up for anything, you don't ever prepare yourself for this. And then suddenly there you are. And so as I said, the learning curve has to be very steep, but in your mind you have to be also accepting of the fact that here I am going to learn. And it took us a while. I think it took me slightly a shorter time, it took my husband a lot longer. But I think, I mean, we are at a very happy place. I am extremely proud of everything my son accomplishes. And then again, somewhere in the back of my mind, I wish he told me that, Mom, I am so happy in my skin and I would not change it for the world.
You can tell by his behavior.
Yes, I can. I totally
Yes.
can. I totally can.
Now, in chapter 3, you spend a lot of time on applied behavior analysis. But, but from what I read, you did not follow a strict ABA approach. How come?
Very good question. Excellent, excellent question. So, first of all, I think the way things were, the way we were conducting therapy, clinical therapy, back in the time that he was young, was vastly different from what it is now. Now, there's a good and the bad part of it. The good part is that insurance covers, so it's not as expensive. The bad part is also that insurance covers, and now it's become a business. So you do have mushrooming ABA centers all over with, quality not very, though the board gives us very stringent, ethical and quality measures. It's questionable sometimes what is followed, what is not. I initially had him in, we never had a clinical therapy center that he went to, ABA center that he went to. The school district itself had a classroom which was ABA based. So one of the paraprofessionals from that classroom would come to our home and conduct, would be having that natural environment training kind of a ABA session every day. And so that worked wonderfully because he was used to that teacher in school, and then he was used to us here at and the same person here at home. So that worked wonderfully. Once we kind of there was a relocation, so we had to move. That's when things got a little different. And we had um, we had home therapy for him, and I realized that he doesn't do well. I mean, back then there used to be a very set tone of instruction. So the therapist would present flashcards and go, touch this, and if he would touch, good job, and then immediately data. So I felt that the focus of the session was data collection and not really engaging with my child as another child. It was almost a very distant kind of a, there was not a personal involvement, is what I felt. So, I mean, that was a very noted home provider, national chain, all of that. So we kind of discontinued that service, and my son was having a very, very hard time in school. So we had another provider, and that changed. The provider changed it a lot. What strategies that person gave us was very naturalistic, very simply doable. Nothing too, this robotic thing to it. So So the way even I work, that's why I think my perspective on this is a little,
Mhm.
I wouldn't just go ahead and say, oh yes, ABA. I'm sure, we can. I always, many times, I would refer my clients to, oh no, for this one, cognitive behavioral therapy will be much better. Let's talk a little bit about mindfulness. Let's talk a little bit about growth mindset. So I try to mix things up and try to kind of have a better, a wholesome, holistic approach. But I felt that a very stringent discrete trial routine with my son,
Mhm.
in the ABA format, the discrete trials did not work with him. A naturalistic environment approach, and then just layering other strategies, having a task analysis, some shaping, some chaining procedures that I have mentioned in the book, using timers like antecedent interventions, things like that, giving him a choice. Those worked much better than just him sitting at a DTT session, flashcards being presented, and him just following those instructions, in that set mode.
There's going to be a lot of parents that are getting a lot of bad information about ABA that is happening right now. If you go to some of the autism sites, they are vehement, violently opposed to ABA and have I could call it a manifesto of page after page after page. And a lot of them are adults with autism who went through just what you were talking about. And I don't know, but I guess I'm going to sometime in the future, I'm going to do a ABA presentation, a video on what was wrong in the past. They're making corrections, they're trying to change things, and it's changed a lot. But people don't understand that ABA is much more naturalistic now. I'm a strong believer in ABA, but I also got certified in floor time because I believe in that. But it doesn't have to be either or. But the foundation is ABA. I mean, that's the research base.
Yes.
The rest just brings humanness, brings warmth, brings compassion. And that's what I liked about your title too, on your book, that nurturing and celebrating your unique child. Uh, and you show that throughout the whole book. So, what do you tell a parent who's been on these ABA or on these groups that is getting all this information, and they're scared to death about even to try an ABA. So, what would you tell them? What do you tell them? How should they proceed?
And this is my everyday work, really. So on the one hand, and there are two things to it. On the one hand, we would like to hear from the autistic adults and their experiences so we can do better. If anything, whatever we need to fix, that we go ahead, fix it, and we do better in our work. The other thing is that because of this kind of almost a lot of people talk about it without complete information, or they haven't done a background research on um, you know and I say this because I have talked to a lot of autistic adults, and a lot of them say, I didn't go through the trauma, somebody in my network did.
Hmm.
Now, unless and until I talk to that somebody in the network who actually went through trauma, I don't know. It just becomes hearsay. Is that, somebody said this, therefore I am relaying that information. So, and then, so as I said, my whole thing is that information is important for us to gather. That information from the correct sources is important for us to acknowledge that, okay, you know what, things may not have been done right. A part of that I know myself, because it didn't work for my son. I saw that firsthand.
Yeah.
So also, when I went to work for a very short time, I was, back then they used to call direct therapists. There was nothing called RBT or a registered behavior technician. All that came later, but they used to call it a direct therapist. And I really thought I made a horrible career move coming into this field, because I said, oh my God, I do not like being in this clinic. I don't like the way therapy is being done. So I understand that, things were not quite okay. What I tell those parents is, like, just as you said, many people get confused and then they suddenly withdraw their kids from therapy, which has happened. And that child has gone into severe regression. Now we've got them back, a few months later, sometimes a year later, and now, we kind of, everything has been undone, and we have to kind of, not even, from square one, we have gone back several squares now, and we start from there. So I think what I want to tell parents is that uh, ABA is not just for, one application of ABA is perhaps teaching children with autism or other developmental disorders, but this is a very scientific based method or intervention strategy. We have from sports to human resources to animal training, whatever you may. There's so many applications of ABA, so many offshoots of ABA. Floor time, very, very. I have done floor time with my son too,
Mhm.
as you mentioned. I remember, and that's like naturalistic environment teaching,
Mhm.
and this kind of runs parallel. I attended a webinar where a cognitive behavioral therapist and a BCBA, she's both certified in both, and she was giving the parallels of how we may do social skills training for certain individuals using CBT. However, it runs very close to ABA as some
Mhm.
aspects for sure. So, if your child is thriving, first of all, the goal of ABA is not sweeping behavior modification. I hear from, a lot of autistic adults will say that we are making them like typical peers, or we want to convert them or whatever, not their uniqueness, not celebrating who they are. Now, the goal of ABA is never to make sweeping behavior changes so that I make you like me or whatever. The goal actually is to sit down with the family to understand if they are needing help in some, what areas, to sit down with the client himself, needing help in what areas. And we're talking about self regulation. We're talking about helping the family function the best that they can. So that's one. Secondly, there's nothing about long-term therapy in ABA. The goal is to reduce. The goal is to fade intervention away. So now we have prepared the child to function in the world, in a world like, as I think mentioned in the book, is that we are the crazies. They have to function with us. It's nothing about modifying anybody else. We are just helping them kind of live their life in society. So I think we have to keep all of that in mind. Parents have to also understand that this is, we are not talking about sweeping behavior changes, sweeping like in long term ABA. We're just preparing them. I feel I am preparing my clients for the next least restrictive setting that they would go to, whether that's a school, whether that's workplace, whether that's functioning with their families out in the community. So um, I, and if your child is thriving, in a place, making progress, that you observable progress, you're able to see what progress they're making, that you're able to now transition to school. The child is now able to function with you, in all settings, with any person, with, not just with, good with the teacher or
Mhm.
the therapist, just with anybody. Then these are the positive strokes. These are things that you would be been wanting, and that's happening. So clearly, then therapy is working. So yeah, I mean, I would ask them to do their research. I would ask them to, this is not an ad hoc, random process. There is science behind it. The platform is suited for very many applications, from classroom to out in the community, and yeah, we should see the, it's for the best interest of the child, and if their child is thriving, that means it's working.
If they're thriving and they're happy,
Yeah.
let's segue to the schools, because this reminded me of this is I just thought of this now, is that in the schools, parents come in contact with the behavior specialists. They have behavior specialists. Probably 80 to 90% of them are not ABA trained, but they're behavioral specialists. And sometimes, I just had a parent that had everything was going great. They moved up a year, got a new teacher, things weren't going good. And the behavior specialist was set up a system where the kid was getting punished from school when he got home. The parents were having to follow through with the punishment at home. And to me, that was like, it's anathema. They should never but parents need help and guidelines. And how do they know whether they're getting good advice or not? And it's not, they're not going to have the luxury of having a highly ethical, highly trained ABA therapist that they're going to be working with at this time. And a lot of times, you know, you painted a real rosy picture of the school, but I did it for 10 years. I was in the schools and I ran thousands of IEP meetings, and I was always the advocate for the student. Luckily I was not at the high management where I had to worry about budget, so I always was that. And I saw how parents were railroaded so often in IEP meetings, and they're not getting what they want. And you talked about how, you gave some nice guidelines, but I'm saying, my experience is that the parents are actually overwhelmed when they walk into that IEP meeting of 8 to 10 professionals sitting there telling them what is good or not good for their child. And
Yeah.
we have to better prepare the parents too. That's just my rant. So go ahead and
No, you are.
respond.
You are absolutely correct. I consult with school districts as well, classroom management with teachers, and I see a lot of what you are saying. Again, I think personally, I have perhaps because I am in the field, and those teachers knew me. Um, I have had it. I've had no complaints for my with my son's education. No complaints at all. But here is what I will tell parents is that there are tons of parent support organizations, whether that's a parent to parent group or a family to family group thing, support organizations like that. They would, do
Yes.
trainings on a very regular basis. It is absolutely critically important for parents to be aware, to be in the know, because that's what happens is that when you don't know, when you then you kind of, I don't want to say it in a negative way, but it's better to be aware of, because you're your child's voice. What I never did was that I never had my children attending the same school where I taught, because I felt that my administrators are my bosses, but I am the voice of my son when I walk into that IEP meeting. So I when I go in there, I am going solely as his mother, because that's my first primary role.
Mhm.
So I had the schools separate. I taught at a different school, even though it was the same school district, because there I'm advocating for my son. Now I think where I wanted to kind of what I wanted to share was that sometimes we want a lot for our kids, but maybe the teacher is not, somehow the classroom or whatever, it's the staffing. There are, sometimes there are some problems, or rather some challenges with the school district, and which is not in the teacher's hands entirely. So then I feel that, okay, fine, this is all what I need. My goal is like, having these 5 things. If I can get 2 right now, and I have to wait a little bit for the other 3 to come about, I am willing to do it. Not giving up on it, but I'll still follow up, but I'm not rushing anybody, so that they feel like, oh god, they now need to have that wall of defense. But you're absolutely correct, and I feel I would definitely I'd recommend parents to be very very aware, because whether that's an IEP, whether that's accommodations, whether that's school goals, behaviors, there are tons of boards that you see online these days on social media. There are tons and tons of ABA trainings conducted, or these IEP accommodations trainings conducted by these family support organizations. And I would recommend that, yes, please be educated and aware yourself.
My I had my battles with the school with my son is ADHD, and looking back, hindsight is always wonderful, isn't it? I believe that we could change the teachers and change it. And I've come to realize that I was wrong. I should have pulled him out and got him somewhere else. When he hit the bad teachers, the teacher is such a critical component, and the principal of the school. The two are such critical components. And if you've got a good principal, supportive principal, and a good teacher, you have a lot of chance of having good selling. But when you don't have those, then look somewhere else. Now, that brings me to my next question is sometimes the kids with autism get bullied, they get picked on, they have terrible experiences in school. and the parents come and say they're pulling them on. The homeschooling has gotten very popular. How do you feel about homeschooling?
I do like it. I mean, I do have a lot of my clients who are homeschooled, and for the reasons that you do mention. And I feel there is one, when your child is nonverbal, self-contained, in that kind of a life skills kind of a classroom, that's that's one setting. Almost all school districts have it. The child is there, or the child is extremely high functioning, can there's no modification required. They can function in a grade level class, maybe with a paraprofessional help at times. That's fine too. Somewhere in between that, I could push my child a little bit more and he will be okay. However, I do see some behaviors. uh, there's not a very good placement for these kids. um, many people, many parents have expressed that displeasure that, what, either he's put in a life skills classroom, that's not the right fit, or he's just placed in a general ed classroom without support and he can't
That's
function
really
like
good.
that. So and I feel, yes, homeschooling, I have at least come across a lot of homeschoolers. They come together. My concern with the homeschooling part was that maybe I'm not providing enough inclusion opportunities or social skills that a child
Hmm.
may have, with the peer interactions. Or like, for the schools that we have been at, there have been programs like a best buddy or a mentoring or a, pals kind of a program. My child has been able to participate, whether that's a prom or a, homecoming dance or whatever it is, in every school activity, just like his typical peers. And I have appreciated that, and I felt, he has been given that opportunity for inclusion. And so with homeschooling, that is the one part I feel a bit concerned about. But I also see that a lot of homeschoolers, they come together, they form a team, and, kids are still studying together. And they have a lot of community outings, natural environment teaching, and so what I also see from some of my clients and their parents is that they need some help behaviorally, because the child is not engaging in a non-preferred activity or a work for too long a time. So then they have a little bit of time, in therapy, or they have some behavioral kind of training on that. They implement some strategies, and then they teach the academics. And I think that's a good balance.
It seems, well, my thoughts too are that the socialization and social skills are so important. And homeschooling can work, but you've got to really plan and add and make sure they get lots and lots and lots of that, because that's one of the things that school does is it's socialization with your peers. And if they don't have that, it's going to make it, it's the kid that's homeschooled that then spends all his time in his bedroom and doesn't go out and interact with anybody. That's what's worrisome to me.
Yes, yes. So and as I said, I think, I mean, there are some homeschoolers who would say every Friday is the peer interaction. There are some homeschoolers who would say that, okay, three of my friends have come together and the kids are all learning together. So yeah, I mean, I still like the model of three people coming together and the kids learning together more than just the
And one
Friday
get
being
isolated.
one day.
Well, with Zoom now, they can do bigger Zoom meetings, and it's getting, with the thanks to the COVID-19, we've become much better. Families have become much better on accessing their computer and using Zoom and things like that. So
Yeah,
uh,
but I mean, I have found it a bit challenging to engage students across a screen,
so it is hard.
effectively engage students.
So
Yeah.
I only have one more question for you. When I read the book, you said this was for the first 10 years of his life. And as I read it, I'm saying some of your examples, he seems older than 10 in some of your examples. So you kind of slip some older examples in there. My
I,
question to you is, what is your next book going to be from 10 to it? I'm really interested in what happens. It's transition. I've been big. I did a lot of my time. I did vocational transition and moving people into jobs in the community. And I'm still involved in on a board that we work with people with multi handicaps and place them in community jobs. Uh, what's the future, and what do you? I think it would be really interesting. You continue this the journey continues, maybe, or
Yes.
something like that.
Yes,
What's your
yes.
plan?
Yeah, my thought exactly. You've taken it from my head. So yeah, I think the first 10 years of our of his life especially, we saw a lot of, I mean, we were grappling with a lot of things. Like, if you would take care of one, something else would come up. I think I mentioned it's like a game of whack-a-mole or something like that. We just like, this and this and this and this all the time. So yes, some examples, especially the travel example. I think there was one or two that I mentioned, which was more recent.
Hmm.
Just to say that we may have actively had a lot of challenges. The first 10 years were really a series of one after another, after another, after another. Things did start getting settled, but then again, the junior high, the first few years of middle school, I think the sixth grade was a little bit of a challenging year again. He was about 12. But transition is something that I want to keep a separate, and that's definitely going to be my next work.
Hmm.
Um, Simply because I mean, I have found such. So I tried. I right now I try to focus my work with the adults a lot, adolescent and the adults, just so that I am feeling that I'm getting the mastery of this space, like I have for the younger one. I feel okay. I can talk about it very comfortably. For the transition space, I feel I want to work with some more, and I want to kind of gain that vastness of the knowledge, or the working with different people in the field. I think on the one hand we are talking about inclusion, which is like diversity and the neurodiversity and inclusion, which is in the workspace for for the adults who are functioning at the level that they are able to keep corporate jobs, or apply for corporate jobs. And I mean, the challenges that they come through, or the unique set of circumstances for them, it's so completely different from maybe somebody like my son, who is he's a 6'3". He's absolutely he follows direct. He'll do whatever you ask him to do. So very able-bodied, capable young man, however severely deficient in communication skills, severely deficient in some social skills. And so what do we do with this group of people who may need a much tighter ratio, that they still need, like a 3:1 kind of a thing, that they need to be successful at a place, but they still can be. So then transition then therefore becomes very layered. At least what I see in Texas also is that there may be a ton of programs, but even I'm not aware of exactly what programs exist, how I can get the help. And as a parent, like, I'm really struggling with so many different things. Texas also has this unique thing of any state provided services, there are like 12 to 14 years wait lists in any of
Yeah,
these waiver
well, everybody
programs.
has wait lists. Yeah,
Everybody has wait lists. We have like decades long. So what do you do then in between? So I'm trying to definitely, the journey continues as it should. And transition is definitely going to be my next work. And
is he still in school?
I am right now, my son, yeah. So
Yeah.
he is in that vocational program. What he
Okay.
does is that he goes out about 4 days a week into the grocery stores, the dollar
Oh,
stores,
good.
convenience stores like that. And he works for about 2.5 hours. So either he goes in the morning or the afternoon, one of the shifts in the day. And the fifth day, one day of the week, they do in-campus jobs. So they, deliver mails or print shop orders to the
Uh-huh.
teachers, coffee, whatnot. So he is getting vocationally trained. I know he would be able to do work in a restaurant, maybe the back end, the dishes,
I
the
trained a lot of people in the back end of restaurants, so
yeah, yeah. So he's going to be wonderful there as well. But I'm not 100% sure of what opportunities exist for him. But maybe for transition, I would like to kind of collaborate and get ideas from people, and then collate that work, not just my voice.
there's
Um,
some good, very good vocational programs, are there?
yeah.
Not specifically for autism, though. that they're more for the intellectually disabled or
Mm,
people with autism and intellectual disabilities.
mm,
I
mm.
think the autism, what I don't, I don't like high and low functioning. I guess level one autism now is what they're calling it, but the people that are more independent, they don't have much in the way of support and they need supports, Uh, but again, you're talking wait lists, you're talking, yeah, so you've got a whole new world to learn about.
Oh yes, totally, totally. Yeah, and I think I did mention somewhere in my while I was talking, I did mention high functioning. Many times I say that just for ease of reference because we've said it so many times in the past, and we can kind of continue saying that. But definitely, yes, there is no high and low. A low functioning kid may be very high in some
Right.
many areas, and vice versa. So yes, I mean we're overall talking about functional capabilities. We're talking about learning capabilities. All of
I have
exactly.
another question for you. This is a
Yeah,
question I used to when I did parent meetings, and I did transition in high school for a long time.
yeah,
And I'll say, have you thought about your child moving out?
yeah. I think practical goal is that he will be just like anybody else at his age. Then he should be able to live independently. I am not ready to cut that. I think I am not ready to cut the umbilical cord yet. He's still very much tied to me and us at home here. But yes, uh, independent living. In an So now when I think about a group home, I'm not sure whether I want him to be in. I've not thought about exactly where and
You got
how
to
that
think about it.
would
Yeah.
come about, but yes.
Supported living is moving, is sweeping the nation, and um, I mean, and I did foster home, adult foster home, people with autism and intellectual disabilities for 7 years too, while I was doing other things, and we moved them out then because the supported living came in. The people in the past didn't have enough support and they couldn't make it.
Yeah,
That the supported living got better and better. And in Oregon, at least, it's gotten better and better. So now that they may have somebody coming in 2 or 3 times a day checking on them, where in the
yeah,
past it was once a week they would check on them, and they couldn't beat the group. Some of the people I got, they just couldn't do it on once a week. But if they had a little bit more support, they could live in a little apartment. Now I'm seeing these apartment complexes in Eugene coming out where they're right in the city, but there's maybe one wing is there's people with disabilities all live there
yeah,
and they're supporting, but they're living independently in their own apartment.
yes.
You know,
Well, there's this community over at Dallas area, and one a parent have parents of their son with autism has created it, and it's independent housing, and I think there are about four people per house with a housemate, and
mhm.
that's where it's like a neighborhood, it's like a subdivision
Like
of
a
all.
neighborhood, yes,
Yeah,
but it's
yeah.
not a ghetto, and it's not an institution,
No,
and
yeah,
it's
no.
not a there's some of these autism centers that are out in the country that have 300 people living there,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
so but it's in the community and they're
Yes,
living. They got supports,
yes, yes,
so.
yes.
You can get me going. I could talk all day about adult services, and I want to talk about your book, so I do want to bring it up again. And we'll be wrapping this up. And this is the Parenting Autism: Nurturing and Celebrating Your Unique Child. It's a wonderful journey. It's a great book. I highly recommend that people pick it up. It's available on autism and on Amazon. And I will when I post this later, I'll put a link for Amazon down below so people can just go right there. But anybody can go to Amazon and just look up parenting autism. There's several parenting autism spectrum disorder. There's a number that have that parenting and autism in the title, but just remember Sanju is in look for that name and you'll find her book there, and it's a pretty colored book too. So
Yes,
uh,
that cover is interesting. It is for years my son had an IEP goal saying he will color between the lines, and he could never color between the lines. His coloring would go everywhere. I said, I want that. I don't want perfect painting. I want colors merging. That's what life is.
Colored. It's beautiful
That's
though.
what it is.
Well, thank you very much. I really enjoyed this, and I hope when we broadcast this, the people are really going to watch this. I will post it on all the groups I belong to and into my mailing list, and maybe you can get some sales. Maybe it'll sell better than my book. My book certainly is. Jeff Cole and I wrote that book on managing meltdowns, and we call it one of our best books that never sold. So Well, let's push yours and get some sales for you too. Okay.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having
Okay.
me. Wonderful
Well,
opportunity.
thank you for coming, and I really enjoyed talking to you. And just have a great holidays. All right.
Thank you. You too. Merry Christmas.
Okay. Bye bye now.
Bye.